And you think about, Bitcoin having the ability to take the value that you create with your time and move it throughout time and space. Bitcoin is as close to time travel as we're ever going to get. You have the ability to actually take the value that you create with your time, lock it in a protocol that's designed to preserve that time. And when you have time, you have options. And I think it's remarkable. There's no baggage. It is just all the rules are there for everyone to see. There's no special treatment for anyone. It's just, here's the rules. Play by them if you want.
Mutual consensus. That's it.
Mutual consensus. Thank you very much. Off we go. It's democratic. And I think it's the most natural form of money that solves all of the modern problems while also, single-handedly transitioning all of the ancient problems without the baggage. And I think that people are slowly but surely, we're seeing piles of customers today in 2025 selling real estate assets and buying Bitcoin. They understand the value of sound money. They understand the importance of value preservation. And finally, this message of Bitcoin is portable. And I see Bitcoin as the lifeblood to our finances, to our sovereignty, to our independence, and to our freedoms.
If you're enjoying the show, it would mean a lot to me if you had hit subscribe and leave a quick rating or review. It helps more people find these conversations and support the mission. And if you need help getting your Bitcoin off exchanges and into self-custody, or if you're ready to build a robust, bespoke inheritance plan, the Become Unruggable one-on-one consulting program where you will work exclusively with me is exactly what you're looking for. You can find all the ways to reach out to me in the show notes down below. Now, let's get started with today's episode.
Freedom isn't won in the streets anymore. It's won in the code, the wallets, the quiet act of taking custody of your own money. Tonight, we're joined by someone who's building tools to help ordinary people live that truth. This is your Bitcoin Story podcast, and I'm your host, Gigi. My guest today is Adam O'Brien, the founder and CEO of Bitcoinwell, a Canadian-based non-custodial Bitcoin exchange. Adam has been a vocal advocate for self-custody and financial sovereignty, often described as the pioneer in bridging the gap between traditional finance and the centralized world. Adam, welcome to the show. Thrilled to have you on.
Gigi, it's a pleasure to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. And I'm really looking forward to hearing your story. I've been following you for some time. I love what you guys are doing at Bitcoinwell. And before we go into that, maybe let's kick it off. Take us back to the beginning. How and where did you first come across Bitcoin, and how did that evolve into you launching Bitcoin?
Oh man, it was a twisty and windy journey. I found Bitcoin early. I was really lucky to stumble upon it kind of in in some sort of blog online I was reading or something. It had just hit $100. And so it was kind of the talk of the town that first, after $1, 100 is probably the next psychological barrier. Funny enough, as today, we're blasting through 100K for kind of the second time. So that's a nice thing, but kind of, on the note of psychological barriers. But so $100 and I, like kind of any arrogant 20-year-old that finds any technology that they think they're late to, I'm like, it's a scam. This is never going to work. And I'm going to be the hero that disproves this for everyone. And so, as you do when you learn about Bitcoin, you learn about the history of money and the history of protocol and decentralization, how important that is, and even the history of governments and freedoms and, how printed money ruins the earth and like all of this stuff. And, time and time again, it was like, oh, wow, well, Bitcoin solves that problem. Oh, hey, Bitcoin solves that problem. Wow, I didn't even know that was a problem. And there's the solution. And guess what? It's Bitcoin. And so through that journey, I wanted to buy some Bitcoin, had a terrible experience buying Bitcoin for the first time. It was sketchy. There was no, exchanges, or there was one exchange in Mount Gox, and it was kind of like wire money to Russia.
To Japan. Russia.
But even their Japanese bank accounts weren't valid for Canadians. So you had to go through a Russian bank, which was like obviously pretty sketchy. And then there was one custodial exchange in Canada that was just starting up, but their verification times were like weeks. And so I opted for a sketchy back alley experience, gave someone $100, got a Bitcoin.
Through local Bitcoins? Or local Bitcoins wasn't around?
It was, I think it might have been just starting up, but it was through Kijiji. And so, which is like Craigslist, but kind of like, or in Australia, they have Gumtree. It's kind of a similar thing. It's owned by eBay now. And so met this guy in a back alley, kind of in like a sketchy part of town. gave him some money. He gave me some Bitcoin, and I was like, yep, this is the worst. It's not going to happen. This is terrible. But kind of had some, confidence in my education that I had kind of, read. I had some confirmations on the wallet. I was excited to see that I could move it to a different address, from wallet to wallet. And I was like, okay, this is feeling, pretty good, but can I sell it? And so I put my own ad on Kijiji on the version of Craigslist. And I was like, hey, I'm selling Bitcoin if anyone wants some. And to my surprise, my phone just started ringing and people wanted to buy Bitcoin. And I was selling Bitcoin and I was meeting people in Starbucks and trying to level up that experience, educating them, helping them with the wallet, giving them my opinions about Bitcoin. And, once a week I was meeting someone, multiple times a week, until almost daily I was meeting people in a Starbucks or a McDonald's, drinking coffee and introducing them to Bitcoin. And then a few months later, the world's first Bitcoin ATM was deployed in Vancouver. This is October 2013. And I was like, whoa, way more scalable than me meeting people in coffee shops. Let's do that. And so that was kind of the first real, business of what at that time was Bitcoin solutions. We were on a mission to make Bitcoin accessible, and the ATMs were the obvious way to do that. And so for the next couple of years, it was just setting up, figuring out how to run a Bitcoin business, getting cash in, getting debanked, learning how to, manage the cash and the hosts. Like imagine in 2014, 2015, calling someone and saying, I want to put a Bitcoin ATM in your business. And they're like, what's Bitcoin? They're like, oh, I've heard of that. It's only for drug dealers. Like all the same objections we had to, all the FUD was working against me, both on a customer side, but also on a host side, and needing to kind of
You're getting hits on both sides.
Getting it from both sides, man. And then also the banking, and, there was no I feel very fortunate to be able to offer certain levels of experience. There was no experience that I could draw on from running a Bitcoin business in 2014, 15, 16. It was just the Wild West. And I was a one-man show and just kind of flying by the seat of my pants, figuring out how the world worked and how to, I guess ultimately how to make the business work despite kind of the world not being quite ready for Bitcoin. And then a few years passed and my mission, my heart, I guess, shifted from accessibility of Bitcoin towards more freedom, more the independence side, sovereignty, exactly. And that was when kind of the whole rebrand started happening. We transitioned from Bitcoin Solutions to Bitcoin Well. And oftentimes, I've actually had a couple people over the last month tell me, they like to hear the brand story of Bitcoin Well and kind of why Bitcoin Well exists. Most people hear it and they think like Bitcoin Good, which I love. I think that's like a hilarious double entendre. But the meaning is actually quite deeper, quite a bit deeper than that. When you think about the early days, the explorers, leaving their colonies and then going to discover new land, the first thing you had to do when setting up
water well
is drill a well. You needed water being the source of life. That was kind of like the first key major infrastructure that needed to go in before roads, before houses, before any type of agricultural infrastructure. We needed water. We had to get the lifeblood into the community of water. And I see Bitcoin as the lifeblood to our finances, to our sovereignty, to our independence, and to our freedoms. And Bitcoin Well is that key central point of infrastructure that empowers our entire community for their freedom. So I think that's, it's much. And then of course, like I said, the double entendre of Bitcoin Good. I'm like a quirky guy. I like weird things that kind of need explaining, much to my demise sometimes. And so yeah, it kind of worked out all for the best, I think. And Bitcoin Well is here today. We're like you kind of said, like we're live in Canada, and really we're a conduit between the legacy financial ecosystem and your Bitcoin and self-custody. There are very, very few platforms, I think only two, both of which being represented here on this podcast, that can say that every single sat that has ever been sold at Bitcoin Well has been delivered to the end customer. You don't hear that from Coinbase. You can't hear that from any platform in the USA, and only from a couple, even around the world. And that gives me great pride that all of our customers are safe. If Bitcoin Well disappeared, lots of people, like we went public a couple of years ago, and lots of the investors were ditch the self-custody thing. No one cares about that. It doesn't matter. But we've seen exchanges melt down. And now I have an investment banker that calls me weekly. And he's like, I can't believe how important self-custody is. Your mission is the most important mission on planet Earth. And it's just so vindicating, so good to hear people, realizing that the benefit of Bitcoin is so much more than just numbers on a screen, number go up financial asset. It is freedom, true freedom in actually owning and controlling your money with real Bitcoin on the blockchain in your wallet. And being able to offer that to our customers is exciting. And I feel incredibly honored to be able to build in the space.
Amazing. Wow. What a story, Adam. You really took us on a roller coaster, starting from buying Bitcoin from dodgy alleys, feeling like you're buying some drugs under the market, and then it's just you
Literally, man, it was like
on your phone.
Weird, digital drug deal is what it felt like.
Crazy, right? Well, it fitted the part where Bitcoin was primarily seen as money for the drug market, so it felt the part.
Yeah, and I actually think people often look at that as a negative, but that to me is a feature, not a bug. I think that we can look to the illicit industries to actually see useful technologies that empower freedom. Now, I say what you want about the use case of illicit industries, but it's only a matter of time before there's a risk to your passion or to your desires to being illicit. I mean, just look a couple of years ago, unless you were forcibly given medicine, I couldn't go watch my son's hockey game because I didn't have experimentary medicines. And that's a problem. And I think that, if you look even throughout Canadian history recently, the trucker protest, single mothers donating $50 to a peaceful protest, empowering freedom for hardworking individuals, all of a sudden gets debanked. This is not going away. This is the beginning of what I believe to be, a group of people that do not want us to have freedom and doing what they can and poking where it hurts the most in order to capture that freedom. And so I think it's the illicit industries that have been kind of feeling that, oppression, rightly or wrongly, for a matter of time. And if we look to those industries, it's like it kind of goes to show us what tools can we use for our benefit of freedoms. And I think that freedom is deeply important. And so, yeah, it is very interesting. I think that's a feature, not a bug, that we get to learn from that.
No, for sure. And it's sad, like what's happening in Europe specifically, how they're really cramping up, and especially with the travel rule, where whenever you send out Bitcoin from centralized exchange, you need to identify, is it yourself, is it to someone else, and I think those regulations are just going to get harder and harder and harder, and it feels insane because we have this freedom money which was designed to free us up from having to prove everything to the bankers and try to kind of always. You feel like a terrorist basically by not being a terrorist because you always need to declare everything, and everything was done to protect us, right? Like especially in Europe with this whole GDPR, where it's like the data protection, yet I need to be submitting down to my underwear size to all these like third-party businesses that I have no idea where they're storing my data. It doesn't feel healthy, and I don't think it's leading in the right path. And thank God we have Bitcoin, because especially as we progress further towards CBDCs, which has been very quiet, I would say, for the last few months. I remember last year there was big talks of it and everybody was kind of, afraid of it. Going back to Europe again, the capital of bureaucracy, they're looking to roll out the digital euro, whatever that means, in October this year. So they're really pushing against it. But yeah, to me, Bitcoin, as you said, is that true freedom money, true sovereignty, where you can pack up your stuff. Like I'm a living example of that. I departed Europe last year. I basically didn't want to follow everything that's been going through. And it was very simple for me. I sold everything, added it to the Bitcoin stack, got the flights and left. And that's the beauty of you being able to just pack up today and go somewhere else with your family, wherever you get treated better, wherever you feel more comfortable and you prefer the way of life. Where prior to Bitcoin, imagine, what are you going to do? Wire all this money? And actually, I moved, you'll be surprised, I live in St. Petersburg, Russia now, where you can't even wire money to this country because they're out of the SWIFT. So it would be piles of cash, but you can't take more than $10,000 with you on the flight, right? Unless you declare it. And I wouldn't be comfortable taking piles of cash with me. But, going with my seed phrase in my back pocket, nobody asks nothing. You don't have to declare nothing. It's pretty simple. And People, depending where you live in the world, or if you're in Iran or China, who knows, maybe even North Korea. I have no idea what's happening there. I'm sure there's big propaganda on what's really happening there. But like, if you're in countries that you didn't choose to be there, you shouldn't be scrutinized by the financial system. And Bitcoin really gives you this hope and freedom to live a sovereign.
Yeah, man. And I think that's often something that it gets lost on the crowd that just apes into ETFs, apes into, random IOUs from Coinbase or other companies. And, we get lost with this distraction.
Or strategy, if I may say so. I don't
Yeah,
know
yeah.
what's
Like your strategy, 100%.
it's nothing.
It's like
It's an IOU for a
even
stock.
yes, and even it's an IOU of an IOU, and then even further to that, you look at real estate. You think, like, to your point, pre-Bitcoin, what were your options? Like, it was limited cash, it was heavy metal and
Gold,
in
yeah.
gold, or real estate was how you preserved wealth. But if you look at that, that's a landlocked asset. That is not something that you have the ability to just pick up and go. You can't experience a significant impairment of freedom and then just, like, what, pick up your house on your backpack and leave? Like, not a chance. It can't happen. And I think that people are slowly but surely, like, we're seeing piles of customers today in 2025 selling real estate assets and buying Bitcoin. They understand the value of sound money. They understand the importance of value preservation. And finally, this message of Bitcoin is portable. And that portability is something that we haven't had in our money in centuries. I mean, you look behind me, there's Executive Order 6102. It was starting then, over 100 years ago, that we had personal freedoms attacked and the money became less portable right then. And after that, you had IOUs. And since then, we've had IOUs. And I think that we will all agree the world is worse off because of IOU money. And Bitcoin now is reclaiming that freedom, reclaiming the ability to have pure and sovereign money, which I think is just heroic.
And just to add to it, on the example in comparison to real estate, not just the fact that you can't physically pack up your house in a backpack and move it to another country, it's super illiquid, especially today. Try and sell something, like, it'll take you months, if not years, to find a buyer. And then once you find a buyer, there's like the bureaucracy of paperwork, lawyers, getting the money cleared. It's
the
insane.
Cost of offloading is crazy. Like, at Bitcoin Well, we charge 1.2% spread. And I think about that and no other fees, nothing. Like, it's literally, if you send us $100, we're gonna send you 98.80. Like that's like it's about as clean as it gets. I think about selling a house. It's like, you got realtors, you got lawyers, you got closing costs, like you got staging costs, like, yes,
everything.
capital gains on top of it. I think too, like, even outside the liquidity problem, you have somebody else with real estate specifically. You have somebody else controlling how much it costs you to own it. So you are always renting your house against regulation, but also against time. Like, the fact that houses, like, a couple years ago, I bought a house. My family lives in it. We love it. It's great property. And I had a surprise, $40,000 septic tank that needed to be replaced because the whole thing was just like problems. So not only did I have, like, literally a basement full of poop that I had to clean and then wash and then fix, I also had to replace, like, an entire septic system at my house because the old one has run its course. It was just old, and that's just what happens to the houses. You rent them against time. And then on top of that, my property taxes have increased year over year over year over year just for the pleasure of owning it. And I do think that we are moving, especially here in Canada, we've got this, like, pretty draconian government in charge. We're moving towards, rich people are bad, wealth is bad. Only wealthy people own homes. Eat the rich, tax the rich. We should be coming for their unrealized gains in their home. Well, who decides what the house is worth? We do, of course. Who else would be suited to tell you what the house is worth? And, like, what happened in Executive Order 6102? It's just more transfer of wealth from individuals to governments. And frankly, if the Canadian government came out and said, "Hey, there's unrealized capital gains on Bitcoin," I'm gone. I'm on the next flight out of here. It's just see you later. And there's literally, I have a property here that I would have to abandon, but other than that, I'm good. It's like, how freeing is that to be living? The world gets so big. Your options are so abundant in that point. And I think that's the magic of Bitcoin, is just giving us optionality. And that's what I mean when I say, like, great, number go up. Lots of things house gives you number go up. I bought a boat the other day and I'm going to sell it for, or a few years ago, I'm going to sell it for more than I bought it for. A boat gives you number go up, but nothing gives you freedom go up like Bitcoin.
That's true. And just to flip it on the other side, on a Bitcoin standard, its numbers go down because everything gets cheaper on the Bitcoin standard.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
It's absolutely insane. Especially, I think we're in the fun time now. I don't think the next generation is going to have the same level of wealth appreciation. I think Bitcoiners, it would be healthy for us to start teaching our kids about wealth preservation, not appreciation. This, like,
Yeah.
frankly, it's offensive to me that our world is set up in such a way that if you are not a speculative investor and a quasi tea leaf reader of technical analysis charts, then you have a hard time getting ahead. It should be enough to preserve your value to just simply hold your money in a protocol like a Bitcoin token that preserves your wealth organically. I am way less interested in number go up than just number stay the same. I want to work a little bit when I'm 20 and I want to save a little bit of that. And then when I'm 30, I want to be able to have a lifestyle that, I can't just get overnight. And Bitcoin allows for that. The number go up, the appreciation, all the wealth appreciation, that's all great. But it's the fiat disease that forces us to think, that number go up is the only way to stay ahead. I think the next generation, and even more so the generation after that, like leading into like 75, like the year 2075, like I'm just so bullish on that time frame, man. And I'm so bullish on the supply of
We're going
money
to be
being
happy
virtually.
granddads. We're going to be happy granddads. That's for
I'm
sure.
going to be a very happy granddad. I talk more about probably my great great granddaughter, who's somebody that I may or may not ever meet. And I
You're going
talk
to tell her
about
about
working
your drug
hard for
deal
her.
Bitcoin purchases from 2013, and she'll be looking at you like, wow, like,
Dude,
Grandpa, you had a wild ride.
literally, man, it's this is a once in a species invention. And, I think it's absolutely miraculous that we get to live in a time where we can directly impact. And I feel bad for people who fumble it. I feel bad for people who get greedy and who stay
Yeah.
inside of a fiat mindset. I'm pro like dipping your toe in, and I'm pro like working through it. It's all part of your Bitcoin journey. I had a long Bitcoin journey. I messed around. I've lost more Bitcoin than most of the world will ever own in doing stupid things. And that's my burden to bear, and a story that I share with anyone who asks as an experience. And experience shares work like that. But I really hope that people really understand the value that the freedom of Bitcoin brings, because this is unlike any other asset, and it's so important that we nail it.
Yeah, no, for sure. I guess I want to steer now the conversation back to the Bitcoin well and your guys' essentially business model. And as you mentioned, apart from yourself and Bull Bitcoin, which I proudly represent, which is also, funnily enough, a Canadian-based exchange, you guys are very unique in the sense that you have a non-custodial model where, as you said, your customers, you never hold a SAT of your customers. Whenever a customer acquires Bitcoin through you or Bull Bitcoin, they need to input their Lightning or their on-chain address and get the money sent straight to them. Do you think, Adam, will have more platforms which will be moving towards this model, or do you think that kind of breaks their business model entirely?
I think we'll see the real ones build this way. I think this is the hard path. I think that this is not the easiest way to build a Bitcoin business. This is actually, I cannot think of a harder
The
way. I
hardest
feel like
one.
I'm walking on
But the
glass.
purest way, the rawest way.
It is the rawest way. I think that though, when I consider the type of world that I want to see, I could probably be a little bit richer and have more wealth if I kind of like reneged on those morals and on my convictions. But I don't know that I would feel happier or more fulfilled. Money can certainly fulfill certain gaps. Like, I feel very fortunate with the wealth that I have, where I get to travel with my kids and give them an incredible experience. I feel fortunate we get to live in a home where the septic breaks and we can fix it. I feel very very fortunate to give my kids a certain lifestyle that I had an amazing upbringing, and my kids are going to have even a better upbringing than I did, and that feels amazing to me. And so, it is because of the money and the efforts that I put in that affords us that. But that peaks at a certain number. And I think the next step to that is mission and purpose. And I truly believe that, my purpose is to help people find freedom. And that's freedom in many different things. And I think that, with the business that I'm in, it's absolutely freedom of wealth and giving them the ability to truly see how having access, true control of their money is kind of the big thing that matters. So yeah, I think that's probably why we do it this way. I think we'll start to see other mission driven individuals in the future. I actually think that's a consequence of the Bitcoin standard. I think that in the future, we're not going to see non-mission driven companies be funded or have investment. The opportunity cost will be so great to part with your Bitcoin to fund frivolous missions. So, once you've hit, you look at all the billionaires, they all have their foundations to fund things they're passionate about.
Yeah.
I think there'll be a continuation of that, but on an exponential scale for Bitcoiners who have had this incredible appreciation of wealth over the last couple decades and quarter century and a half century. They're going to realize hey, my kids are going to be fine with 100 Bitcoin. They don't need 110. Why don't we take 10 Bitcoin and do something incredible for the world and stamp our legacy that way? And I think that mindset is going to require a pretty big shift in the financial system. And I think that Bitcoin can afford us that shift. And I think that the world gets a lot better when mission-driven individuals are being funded, not for financial gain. Although there's businesses have to be sustainable and there needs to be some level of financial stability, but more so for the gain of the mission. And that's exciting to me.
No, for sure. And, on the aspect of, we share that together, and the emphasis that money is not everything. Money, of course, brings you a lot of the goods that you want and it improves your lifestyle. Money and essentially Bitcoin, it's just a tool, right? At the end of the day, it's a tool to get you what you really want. But at the end of the day, I myself as well, like I mentioned, and most of the listeners already know, I departed my 2 fairly good paying fiat jobs last year and I make a lot less money today, but I feel much more fulfilled. I wake up, knowing that every day, I can focus on what I really want. I know that I'm giving an impact, maybe not at the moment, but as we go forward, the impact is just going to, compound and it's going to touch more people and it's going to help more people to kind of zoom out of the matrix. Money is not everything. It, of course, gives you the lifestyle that you want. But at the end of the day, it's about, I fully agree with you, kind of what's your personal mission. And if more people would really focus on that personal mission, and it doesn't have to be just Bitcoin. Of course, Bitcoin is a special place to be in, and especially today with everything that's getting built. But just generally, if you're passionate about the things that you really want to do and you can't, no wonder we have such an epidemic of drug taking and alcohol and just depression. And then that depression is cured by more pills and just more pharmaceuticals. It's not a healthy environment to be in. And I'm also bullish on kind of the Bitcoin standard where people can actually focus on what they're passionate about. And if more people would do that, it would be a much, much more beautiful world where we collaborate, we help out each other, and we build beautiful things. It goes into the second point with Madex, one of my favorite artists in the space, also another fellow Canadian. There's a lot of Canadian mentions on this.
Per capita, there's no better place. Canada produces more Bitcoiners per capita than any other place in the world.
That's true.
That is an audacious but very, very, very accurate claim.
That's true. And Madix has a fantastic quote, which I'm sure you're familiar with, which goes along the lines of capital is the root of all good, along those lines, basically, which is the opposite of money is the root of all evil. Thought about, a lot of money, you get corrupted and, you go into a maniac, but actually it shouldn't be that way. Real hard money actually is the capital of good. You are able to do good things with your money. And I'm of the same belief that as we progress into this Bitcoin standard and the early adopters and even people today that start stacking, they're going to have such a significant amount of wealth that they can deploy into the things that they're really passionate about, that we're going to see beautiful things being created and things that are meaningful instead of producing something just to make an extra buck, which today's most businesses, their number one priority is not customer satisfaction, it's profit maximization for the stakeholders. Yes. Which is insane. When a decade ago, living in London, I've got a business degree and they were asking in one of the first lectures, they were saying, well, what's the number one mission of a business? Like, what's the priority goal? And I happily picked up my hand and I was like, oh, I know the answer. And they said, well, what is it, Gigi? And I said, well, basically to offer the best service or product that you possibly can. And they say, no, that's incorrect. And I was like, so reveal, what's the secret? Like, what's the number one priority? And it was like profit making. Like, the company needs to make money. And then at that moment, I realized, well, I was like, well, that's why, sorry for my French, but we live in such a fucked up world because it's all about money. It's all about that greed. I need more money, more money, more money. And that money is never enough. And once you go down that spiral, it's a one-way road. And in Bitcoin, it's, yeah, of course, it's nicer to have more Bitcoin, but as long as you have a decent amount stacked and you're just regularly stacking, working on the craft that you love and just, adding more sats at the end of the month than you started with, you don't need to go the sailor route and be announcing 1,000 Bitcoin purchases every week or so. Even a few 100,000 or 1,000,000 sats every month will go a long way in the future. People, I really tell them, don't focus on the big numbers. Of course, have the target of that one Bitcoin, but don't be dissuaded by looking at the fiat prices. Just make sure you're regularly stacking. Is that weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, whatever it is, just keep on stacking. And over a period of time, have a long time horizon, 4 years, you're going to be looking back like, oh my God, I did the right move. The most important thing is getting off zero.
Yes. Yeah, I think getting off zero is the first step in everyone's Bitcoin journey. I think lots of the problems that you're describing, they stem from the separation of money from value. And also kind of as the world has gone down this like really terrible secular route where we've kind of all lost this deep spirituality with the creator. And I think that lots of what you describe comes from this like kind of waving, uncertain path. No one has a deep-seated connection. No, I shouldn't say no one, but people that often are the unhappiest are the ones that don't have that deep-seated connection, that deep-seated purpose, and that deep-seated desire to kind of tune in and really understand, purpose and having something more than money. And I think that that's a sadness. And I think that again, like it comes from misaligned incentives from a money system. And I'm very bullish on the money system being fixed and having, more spiritual people and people pointing, being led by God and understanding how to live their life in a more impactful way, which will just naturally be more fulfilling, which makes people happier, which energizes more people, which makes the world a better place. It's like you can just see how the natural incentive system benefits.
For sure. And, just to ask you, Adam, have you ever met a depressed Bitcoiner? I'm yet to meet one, which is like...
It's so true, man. It's like, we see the optimism in this space at such an alarming rate. And you compare it to, the guy making $1 million a year at some like fiat
investment
soul-sucking
bank
job. And it's like they're miserable. They're blowing coke up their nose. They have affairs on their wife. Their family's a mess. It's like, I wonder why you're unhappy. On paper, you should be the happiest person on planet Earth, but you're not. What's missing? And it's that purpose, that guiding direction in your spirit.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And, on the subject of spirituality, that's another kind of rabbit hole that I love diving deep into. Actually, a few weeks ago, I did the new series now. I call it Proof of Thought, where I have like 3 other guests come on and we will discuss different topics. And we actually recorded the first one, which the topic was Bitcoin and spirituality.
Love that.
We had Tomer, we had Eric V. Stacks and Lauren Hoddle. And we went really deep into spirituality. And, anyone that's interested listening to this episode, definitely I would recommend it. If you want to hear more about how Bitcoin is a spiritual tool, go check out that episode. But on the aspect of spirituality, it's something that is really needed. Couldn't agree more with you, Adam, where you said kind of in the current legacy system, we lose touch with the creator and kind of why we are here in the first place. It's so special what we have as living humans, the fact that we are alive. I always tell everyone's a champ because you were the fastest sperm cell. You were like competing against other ones, but you made it. So like, there's no reason you should be looking down on yourself because your system's telling you you're crap at your job and you're not paying the taxes that you should and you're not crossing the road where you should be. We're not hamsters at the end of the day. Like, we're free spirits that want to focus on what we want to do. That's the beautiful thing with Bitcoin, is that it really opens up. It's kind of like an extra chakra opener where you really discover in yourself what you really want. And you now have the access to go and live that life and giving a service or selling products to anyone in the world. To 8 billion people are suddenly able to purchase your product or your service, no matter where they live, no matter if they're in a sanctioned country or not, no matter what banking system they have or not. Majority, and I don't believe any government numbers, so I don't even believe the numbers that they tell us about the unbanked. I think more than half of the world is unbanked because it's harder and harder to open a bank account nowadays, and especially if you know, with the Gen Zs. I don't know how active they are in opening their bank accounts, and Gen Z is the biggest generation. I mean, the biggest population of the world are Gen Zs. And those guys much prefer, you know, doing things on their phone and live in a cyber world than, you know, going to the bank and providing all these numbers and different proofs and different, you know, just hurdles of KYC. Bitcoin really is this, you know, a lot of people also tell me like, not anymore, but when I got in the journey a little bit later than you did that, but in 2017, people were saying like, oh, is Bitcoin the next internet? And I always looked at it as Bitcoin is completing what the internet started. The internet allowed us to communicate with everyone in the world at any point in time. I'm sitting now in Russia, you're sitting in Canada, we're instantly speaking, recording this episode thanks to the internet protocol, but we were never able to transfer money on the digital protocol. Data was flowing, but money wasn't. And now Bitcoin, thank you Satoshi, allowed us to actually transact with anyone in the world. So like once you have this full collide, and then let's not even touch upon AI. That's a story of its own. But I mean, AI is just further projecting the amount of stuff that you can create today. You know, just maybe touch upon the AI aspect, because a lot of people bash and they're like scared by AI and it's going to take over the world and we're going to lose our jobs. The same thing people were saying in the industrial revolution when, like, you know, factories came around and electricity came around. They said, oh, it's going to kill us all. But like, look, the world is much more advanced and much more efficient to a certain extent on a shitty monetary standard. But now we're shifting the pendulum to the sound money standard. And I think with AI, you can have an army of like 1,000 workers at your fingertips for $20 a month subscription. Just insane. You can do so many things. So like, what a time to be alive. I'm not going to ponder about the greatest. People don't usually agree. They say it's not the greatest time to be alive. I'm more of the glass is half full. So I truly believe it's the most, if not the greatest time, it's the most prosperous, and you have the most possibilities today to do, thanks to the internet, Bitcoin, and of course with AI tools that come in part. So I'm just really excited to everything that we're building today. And I'm also super fortunate. I don't give so much impact as you do, Adam, but at least I play my role in helping, you know, shape people's minds into being sovereign individuals and, you know, really finding their mission and focusing on what matters. Because at the end of the day, I just said, and I totally agree once again with you, there's a lot of agreement on this episode. Family is number one. Like the fact that I left my fiat job and I want more people to leave their fiat jobs and focus on their own craft is because you can spend time with your little ones, and your little ones grow super fast. And I don't want to be having a good paying job and 20 years down the line, once they're long gone out of the house, I'm sitting on the porch and regretting, why did I not spend more time with them? And this is what Bitcoin gives you. It buys you back time from the future. So I have this saying, of course, Odell's stack sats, stay humble, but I have another version, which a good friend of mine shared in the episode a few months ago. It was stack sats, stack time. You know, the more sats you have, the more time you actually get from the future, which is the most important part, because life is short and you got to go enjoy it and just try and make the world a little bit better than how you found it through whatever means that is. And that's why how, to me, Bitcoin like completes this picture of finding your purpose in this world.
Yeah, man. I mean, when you think about Bitcoin, when you think about money more broadly, money is for all it's a tool to solve coincidence of wants, right? It's not something that, it's not real.
Well, you can't ingest it.
Money, exactly. Money is simply just solving coincidence of wants. And when you think about what is coincidence of wants, or even back one level from that, why does the coincidence of wants exist? It's because I want to trade something that I've done with my time for something that you have done with your time. And the fact that money solves the coincidence of wants, you can kind of, I think, like, it's a pretty clear direct path to money being a representation of time. And if you spend your time creating something of value that you then trade for a unit of value, then that unit of value is a direct correlation to your time. And when you spend your money, you are in fact spending your time. And when you save your money, to your point, you are saving your time. And you think about Bitcoin having the ability to take the value that you create with your time and move it throughout time and space. I think maybe it's Jack Mallers or someone had the take that like Bitcoin is as close to time travel as we're ever going to get. And I tend to agree. You have the ability to actually take the value that you create with your time, lock it in a protocol that's designed to preserve that time. And when you have time, you have options. And I think it's remarkable. I love that stack sats and stack time. I heard someone say the other day, what's the point in saving time if you don't spend it? And I love that. I love that idea, counteracting this hustle culture, counteracting this kind of high time preference. Like,
that was Mandrick, by the way, who wrote that, because I saw that tweet as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, because you're talking about something about
taking a
not
2-hour walk and smelling the flowers and the honey.
2-minute
I
drive.
remember this.
Yes. Yeah, and he crushed it, man. It was like, of
Yeah.
course, the Baklava
Powerful.
King, is talking about time. But yeah, such a nice way to frame life. And I see it with my kids. I've got 4 kids, ages 8 and younger. And yeah, I definitely, would like. I'm sure I'll have regrets, but I love that I have the ability to be so introspective today, so as to have the opportunity to live strategically and spend the time appropriately. At least what I find to be appropriate today.
And live in the present, which is super important, which most people forget. They're always chasing something, the next paycheck, the next promotion, like always, delaying things. But people don't realize when it comes to time, there's just the now. The past is done. It's in the books. It's history. You'll never change it. And the future depends on the actions you take right now. There is no waiting for that, right moment. That moment never comes. So it's really giving you kind of the focus on, taking in every moment that you have, which is super important.
Yeah, man. No, I love that. I think, and it's funny too, how, like you said it earlier, there's, we're lots of agreement on this podcast, but it's because Bitcoiners have that North Star. We all kind of have that, aligned value system. And I don't think we all came from an aligned value system. I'm deeply, I'll have to check out your other show about proof of thought.
Yeah,
I think that's really interesting. I've been giving a presentation. I've given it 3 or maybe even 4 times now. Once in Costa Rica at the Bitcoin Jungle, once in Montreal, and then recently in El Salvador, called Jesus is a Bitcoiner. And it kind of goes through the teachings of Jesus and how closely they relate to Bitcoin, almost all of them. And how, like, I fully believe Bitcoin to be a biblical asset, and God decreeing money and kind of what money was designed to solve, and how Bitcoin solves that problem verbatim. Yeah, I think it's a really interesting conversation that I think that the world is more open to hearing than maybe it was a couple years ago.
No, for sure. And I think I'll definitely, I just made a note, Adam, I'll be inviting you in the next Proof of Thought roundtable discussion.
That'd be awesome.
I think it's going to be a fun one. But, just to touch upon and add on the time aspect, to the new listeners who are only embarking on their Bitcoin journey as of recent and who have not yet, and I highly recommend to read the white paper, you will realize Satoshi never mentions blockchain a single time. Zilch. He refers to it as a time chain. Bitcoin is a time chain. And when you comprehend the impact of that, then everything changes forever, because now with the time chain, we can record everything forever and nothing can be changed. History books, as we know it, were always written by the winners. History that we're taught in schools, most probably a lot of things didn't really happen. Like, it was similar events, but like everything was manipulated and placed to how the winners wanted to be portrayed.
History books are written by the winners, man. I don't think that's a secret.
That's true. Yeah, no, but I mean, just clarifying some facts out there for the younger generations. And now with Bitcoin, you can, and timestamping and, actually putting something that can be changed for future generations to verify is super important. And I'm no advocate of ordinals or stamping, especially at the moment. It's a very sensitive topic with a whole core and nuts debate, but just aspect of timestamps, which Peter Todd did years ago. I think it carries some weight, and, having something that you can actually place into chain forever, for eternity, essentially, because I truly believe Bitcoin is a money that's going to be here for thousands of years. It's not a 100-year money. It's going to be here long after we're gone. And yeah, going back to, I'll close that remark on how early we are. 16 years in, Adam. And just before we got on the show on X, I saw that infamous image of, the tally where Bitcoin sits on the market cap asset class ladder.
Number 5.
Number 5. We hit the top 5, which is insane. In 16 years, not 60 years, not 600 years, but 16 years. And the only 4 which are in front of us are essentially inflated company stocks, which are going to get decapitated maybe in a year, maybe in 2, maybe in 2 months. Who knows? You can never predict the Bitcoin timing. As the saying goes, time in Bitcoin always outweighs timing Bitcoin. But
yes,
very soon we're going to be on that number 2 spot, and gold for sure at some point in time will also lose it, and Bitcoin will be the highest valued asset in the world. So going back to, don't get demotivated by seeing $110,000, $120,000 Bitcoin price on the screens. Focus on stacking those sats, as we said, because in the future it's going to be super cheap thinking you bought at 100K.
I think it's this complete shifting of the mindset that is not conducive to the fiat world. Everyone invests in something to preserve capital. So they have an entry and an exit. Everything has a natural cap because the fiat, something has to have a cap. And because money has no cap, the things that we put money in have these caps. There has to be some level of naturality in the world. The money is horribly unnatural. And so that naturality falls from the money into market caps and other type of things, and then depending on how much steroids get injected into that market is dependent on what the cap is. But when you think about Bitcoin itself having the cap, I think that lends, because there's a finite amount of number of units, there is an infinite amount of value that gets to be poured into it, which is it completely flips the script. It moves us from entry and exit targets to accumulation targets, regardless of price. Like I bought my first Bitcoin for $100, and I bought Bitcoin. It's Wednesday. I buy Bitcoin Tuesday and Friday, and every other Thursday is as my buying schedule. And so it's like, okay, I bought Bitcoin yesterday, didn't even look at the price. Like money leaves my bank and sats get into my wallet. Thank you very much. And then I buy Bitcoin again tomorrow, and I buy Bitcoin again on Friday. And it doesn't make a difference to me what the price is at, because to your point, my great granddaughter isn't going to be looking like the numbers won't make sense. Like if you price Bitcoin in yen, or you price Bitcoin in Venezuelan, peso, or like any of the other foreign currencies, even like it just, the numbers are fake. The numbers are all fake. What is important is that you create value with time. You take that value, which is now just floating in, space, lock it in a protocol instead of locking it in some fiat garbage system, and let the protocol do the work. And it is so simple. People look at Bitcoin, which like we've got this financial system plagued with miseducation and complexity and, wrong information. And people assume that all that baggage comes over to Bitcoin. And Bitcoin is a complete, shift, split and shift. There's no baggage. It is just, all the rules are there for everyone to see. There's no special treatment for anyone. It's just, here's the rules. Play by them if you want.
Mutual consensus. That's it.
Mutual consensus. Thank you very much. Off we go. It's democratic. And I think it's the most natural form of money that solves all of the modern problems, while also, single-handedly transitioning all of the ancient problems without the baggage. It's insane.
That's true. That's actually referring back to what we mentioned at the Proof of Thought episode. Tomer talked about how we never had in humanity, global consensus on something, because there was always different religions, different classes, different monarchies. And now with Bitcoin, there's this one consensus. It's either you play with the rules or you go your own way. And it's beautiful.
Well, and the cool thing is that, before, through like the different monarchies and the different empires that existed, not only did we have split consensus, but we had rulers and not rules.
That's true.
It was different consensus that was difficult to communicate at the time, with different people who were all probably like pretty serious alphas that didn't want to give up their thought and charge. Today, it's flipped. We actually have a group of individuals that have as much voting power towards the money as the rulers did at one point in time. And humanity is going to thrive in a system of rules, but not rulers.
That's very true. Not having a ruler, I think, is a feature, not a bug, right? As you mentioned, because the fact that you don't have this ego tripping, leader at the top that's like drunk on his power, like it's the code is there and we abide by the code. And at the end, it's a win-win for everyone. If you're helping out someone else in the space, you're helping yourself because we're all, on the same standard. And that's a beautiful thing because in legacy markets, you always have the winner and the loser. But when you sell your stock high and someone buys it high and then it drops, well, someone lost and the other person won, right? But in Bitcoin, everybody wins. And the last point that I want to touch upon was people comprehending why Bitcoin is forever going up, Laura, is the fact that it's finite. It's 21 million units. I think it's not even unnatural. People can't wrap their minds around that there is a fixed supply of units, which we've never had in the physical world, because even gold and real estate, people say real estate scarce. There's so much land out there. And if you need more land, Dubai and Monaco and all these places are building more land on water. So you can always have like more land.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, I was in Hawaii recently, and I was shocked to learn there's I think in 1 year there was 800 acres of new land from a volcano eruption, magma, blah blah blah. And
land inflation.
Let's be honest, 800 acres is not a huge thing, but
it's still
I didn't hear about it. And I think, if there was a really big one, why not 8,000 acres? Why not 80,000 acres? Why not a whole new island that gets formed? Land is certainly not scarce. And to your point, Dubai is literally building new land right now. We're building up into the sky.
Not to mention they have a massive desert. Most of the land is desert anyway. There's plenty of land to build on. But back to the fact that, that's the physical realm. But then in the digital realm, to have something that's scarce, where you can copy paste basically anything, it's insane, like what Satoshi put together. And most people don't realize that Satoshi didn't just sit down one afternoon and drafted up that white paper, put some code together, pitch patch, and boom, it was gone. Cryptography was going on for 30 years, like so many different inventions, and from David Chaum and Adam Back and a lot of different beautiful minds, came up with one beautiful solution, and then Satoshi kind of just came in and just connected the dots. I like to do this association. Satoshi's like Steve Jobs, because Steve Jobs was no programmer, he was no designer, but he designed the greatest tech company in the world because he was the dot connector, right? The mouse, the everything. He came in and he connected the dots and made what Apple is today. And Satoshi likewise didn't invent most of these things. He just connected them and put them together in an elegant way and did the biggest thing that he just walked away, which is like phenomenal. The fact that like this person or group, but maybe a person, let's just say it's a person, just walked away. It's such a powerful thing. And I think that's what makes Bitcoin, that leaderless tech, because all these other altcoins with the Vitaliks and Charles, and not to mention all the other guys that are kind of ego tripping on their future tech that they're building, world computers and whatnot. Yeah, like Bitcoin is in a league of its own, and I think numbers speak the truth. So yeah, I mean, super bullish on what's happening. And I guess my next question would be, and one of the closing questions is, Adam, what are you most excited about what's happening in the Bitcoin space today? We had to tone down the conversation because we were getting very hopiumed up. We were high in the clouds.
Too much hopium coming in. Yeah, I think I have a hard time probably pinpointing one specific thing, but I think kind of where we're moving. I really like the conversation around spend versus save Bitcoin.
Yes.
I personally subscribe to a mantra that you need to spend Bitcoin. I subscribe to
money, right? What's good to just have money in a safe, right? You need to spend that money.
I think the mantra that if you don't spend Bitcoin, you're the real one or whatever, it means you have fiat on the side, I guess. And I think that regardless, status is dumb, I think anyways. And so labeling someone a maxi or an OG or something is kind of just a little bit like it's whatever. But I do truly believe that spending Bitcoin is not only important in this day and age in order to bring adoption and stuff, but it's actually going to be necessary in the future. It's not going to, like, the centralized systems that are against freedom are not going to promote Bitcoin. And so unless we do the work now to get little, I love what Ben is doing in Calgary with the SAP market,
Yeah.
creating, and I've talked to him about this at length. It's like he wants to create little circular economies so that if and when the world goes to hell in a handbasket, he has a community. He can buy his eggs and his beef and his tea and his clothing and whatever it may be with Bitcoin, with permissionless money. And I think that I really liked seeing the Stake and Shake implementation. I think it looked like they did it right. And there's a bunch of noise around, oh, it should say payment is in Bitcoin, not in Lightning, and we got to remove sats and just call it Bitcoin, do like a reverse split or the splits or whatever. And I think all that stuff, I don't have too strong. I could probably go either way. I don't have very strong opinions on it personally. What I do have a strong opinion on it, though, is that the future of Bitcoin, number go up and protection of Bitcoin is installed. And I think about my journey where it went from accessibility to independence. Bitcoin's going to move from security and number go up into usability. And I'm bullish on the future of usability in Bitcoin. I think Lightning Network is doing pretty cool things. I love the Nostr plus Lightning Network integrations. I think it's super cool. I'm bullish on decentralized protocols such as the Nostr protocol and the Lightning protocol. And so I don't know what the future of payments looks like on a Bitcoin standard, but I do know that it's going to be very smart people leading the way. And I think those smart people are starting to think about it. And I am very bullish about that.
I love it. The aspect of usage is so important. I'm in the same camp with you on that one, Adam.
More agreement.
More consensus. No, but I think this mantra of just hodl forever and what Saylor made very popular, never sell your Bitcoin, especially to new people entering, they think oh, wow, this is so precious, I should never spend it. But that goes against the ethos of Bitcoin. And Jack Dorsey on another podcast a few weeks ago where he mentioned, I think you saw that, most people saw that clip, he said that if we don't use Bitcoin as a means of exchange, the protocol fails. And I truly believe that, because if we're not using it, then that's something a little bit worrisome, where at the moment, the time of this recording, we're at an all-time high, and I haven't checked, but I checked this morning, the mempool, and the fees were one sat per VByte, which is just insane. We're clearing half empty blocks, and it's a little bit scary that
and it's all-time high. This is
all-time
high only comes from
I guess the first cycle ever, no? That we're all-time high and empty blocks.
It just goes to show that we are stacking paper Bitcoin as a society.
Yes.
It's not real. And at Bitcoin Well, I think actually on our homepage, it says buy real Bitcoin.
Nice.
And I think that buying real Bitcoin needs to be the standard. It's sad that we have to qualify it as real Bitcoin because somebody with a Coinbase wallet locked, who knows if that Bitcoin even exists? And if it does exist, it's not accessible by them once they leave the country, or unless they provide a bunch of data. There's the whole custodial platform is at risk of a massive bait and switch. And I don't care if you have proof of reserves. I don't care if you have all the best intentions at heart. I don't care if you're a strong leader. I don't care about any of that. When the government puts a gun to your daughter's head, you're going to do what they say. And I don't ever want, to put myself in that position. And so as a result, my customers also won't be in that position. But it's all the proof of reserves and good intentions in the world do not prevent, the centralized curse. And I think that we need to really wake up to that fact, quit trading paper Bitcoin, start buying real Bitcoin, taking self-custody, and just, stay humble, stack sats, and some time.
I love it. No, for sure. Ever since ETFs came about, it's been just over a year now since the first ETFs got approved. A year ago on this podcast, I was ranting about, I was asking every guest, what do you think are the chances that there's paper Bitcoin being sold with these ETF guys? And most people said, yeah, I think there's some paper Bitcoin happening. And now clearly, as we said, with the all-time high, and there's no transactions on chain, it's all just paper Bitcoin on some centralized ledgers, inputting, oh, we're moving this Bitcoin to there, but they have no idea where that Bitcoin is in Coinbase or Fidelity or wherever. Does it even exist? Was it even mined? Was it not? Because the amounts that are being publicly just MicroStrategy or strategy, they announce thousands of Bitcoins that are purchased, which is way more than are mined every day. And I don't know many people that are selling hundreds and thousands of Bitcoins. So where is that Bitcoin coming from? And to this day, they never, even though I agree with you, proof of reserve, it's not ideal, but They never even announced any proof of reserve. It's just it's a fancy screenshot that Sater posts on a Monday saying how much
It's
they add.
literally, I think it's just at
Insane.
Coinbase. Like it's sitting, I think most of them, 90% of them are in a massive honeypot
Crazy.
at
And we saw
Coinbase.
what happened to Coinbase just a few days ago with their whole data leak
Data
on their
leaks.
client. Insane.
Yeah, and listen, like that same thing could happen on any platform. It's whatever. But when you consider the fact that Bitcoin is data, and you consider that, you know, we had personal data, not like we, like Coinbase had personal data leaked, and you
Talk
consider
about
that
OPSEC.
Bitcoin is data, it's getting a little scary. And you think about the honeypot that exists inside these custodians, especially the ones with proof of reserves. It's kind of like, you know, if I'm a hacker, I'm going to put and focus my attention on the guaranteed prize. And I'm not going to focus on Adam's wallet. I'm not going to focus on Gigi's wallet. Those guys are small potatoes compared to, like, you know, oh, this company tells me they have hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin. Why don't I start there?
I think that that's a good starting point for the dark hat hackers. But on a more positive note, just to spin it off and kind of finish it on a positive note on the aspect of usability, you know, one of my favorite projects in the space, shout out to BTC Pay Server. I usually rock their hat and sometimes their pendant. What they're doing, and, you know, Nicholas and the team and Rockstar Dev, I mean, the fact how they've opened up, and essentially it's commissionless plug-in into any, and what they've done with not web commerce, what is it called?
Shopify?
WooCommerce, yeah, WooCommerce. I think Shopify will also, they're all on the list, but like with WooCommerce, like there's like millions of websites. Like e-commerce is such a big industry, and the fact that you can just plug in now and be selling your products and services for Bitcoin in a self-custodian, not some third-party business taking your sats, and then you need to be once again relying, no different to IOUs with the ETFs, but actually getting those sats to you. Super bullish on that. And, you know, anyone listening to this episode, definitely go out and wherever you can spend your Bitcoin, support those businesses. And if you feel bad spending your stack, well, then just buy spot Bitcoin at the moment that you want to do the purchase, instead of like sending them dollars or pounds or yen. Just buy that Bitcoin and just send it through. So at least, you know, you're not depleting your stack, but you're still supporting the protocol and growing the network. And to me, the final number go up that really matter is people joining the network.
Yes.
Daniel mentioned this on an episode a few months ago. He said to him the most important number go up is people joining the network. Because when new people join the network, it's a one-way entrance. Nobody gets into Bitcoin and goes after all, actually, you know what, like, this is not for me. Like, I don't like the taste of this one. Like, I'll go try out some other stuff. It's a one-way journey. So you hit that one on the nail, Adam.
Ah, thank you very much. It's been a lot of time thinking about this stuff. I think it's deeply important that we understand the implications and the consequences of our actions for generations to come. And I'm like I said at the top, like it's truly an honor to get to build in this space. And you know, I take Uncle Ben, like, with great with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah.
I mean, I subscribe to that 100%.
Amazing. I guess to close it up and to kind of do the full circle around the Bitcoin well, what's next for the Bitcoin well? Do you guys have some plans? Are you, and personal question, are you looking to expand to other categories, or you really just want to focus on the domestic Canadian? And I think you're serving US clients as well, or no, or it's just Canadian?
Yeah, we've been in the US for about a year now.
Okay.
I think we just passed 10,000 customers in the US, which is awesome.
Nice.
We're proud on that.
Congrats.
But of course, we have a long, you know, that's a rounding error compared to the total population. So probably going to be focusing on the Canadian US, maybe the North American market. Our mantra is replace your bank with Bitcoin Well. So what do you do with your bank, and how can Bitcoin Well empower you to do all of that, but from Bitcoin and self-custody? And so in Canada right now, you can pay your bills with Bitcoin. You can you can buy Bitcoin, of course, in less than 30 seconds directly from your bank. You can sell Bitcoin, receive money directly in your bank. You can send payment through the kind of like the e-transfer protocol here in Canada. Like, I pay my my gardener. He doesn't want to take Bitcoin. He just wants an e-transfer in dollars. It's got costs and things. And so I send Bitcoin to Bitcoin Well. Bitcoin Well sends him an e-transfer instantly, and he gets dollars into his bank. So I'm able to use Bitcoin from self-custody, and he is able to get dollars. And every time he sees, you know, sent with sats from Adam, sent with sats from Adam. And it's like, you know, it's so good. And
at
even
what point you're waiting when he's going to be like, just send me the sats. Like, don't.
Bingo, exactly. Like, and And so I think it's going to be leaning into that. In the US, we just launched, you can have your paycheck deposited into Bitcoin Well and then have, automatically converted into sats and sent to self-custody instantly and immediately. And we're launching a really cool function, some Nostr integrations, which I'm super bullish on. So definitely stay tuned for some of that. So yeah, lots of fun stuff going on. Like I said, building this space is just like, it's electric. It's out of hand how much fun it is to be creative, solving problems with the mission that is, how do we enable maximum independence? It's just such a treat.
I love it, and from deep inside of my heart, I wish you all the success and luck, and helping freeing people from the draconian cabal banking system and getting them onto the SAT standard, and just showing them the way to truth. I guess the final question would be, where would you like to send our listeners, and where can they follow you online and get in touch if any of them want?
Definitely, if you're in Canada and the US, please go make an account at bitcoinwell.com and just tell me all the things you hate. I really appreciate all the nice messages people give me, but I'm always asking for mean ones. Tell me why you hate it, why it sucks, what makes it better. Be as rude as you like. I've got thick skin. I love getting critical feedback, especially when it comes with, action items for how it makes sense. And then we, always take the feedback, the tough feedback that I receive. We cross-reference it to our mission as a filter and then implement. And I love doing that. And then for me personally, if you like what I have to say, I'm on Twitter, Adam O'Brien _, and I'm on Nostr, adam@btcw.app. I'm a NIPO5 maxi. So btcw.app, that's our Nostr verification, and then just adam@btcw.app or primal.net/adam, I think probably works too. But yeah, would love to connect and hang out. If you're going to be, I'll be in Vegas for the Bitcoin conference. Not sure when this is airing, but that'll be
After
fun.
that.
Oh, okay. So I will have spoken then on self-custody in Vegas, which I'm super pumped about. And yeah, I just love talking to Bitcoiners. So definitely let's connect online and let's chat more and figure out how to fix the money.
Awesome. Well, guys, don't be shy. Slide into Adam's DMs. I think he'll be happy to hear from you. And definitely do go check out. And if you are in Canada or US, create a Bitcoin Well account. Test it out for yourself. And yeah, Adam, thank you for sharing your time, insights, and mission with us. It's been a powerful conversation. And to everyone watching or listening, thank you for tuning in into your Bitcoin Story podcast. If you found this episode insightful, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. It really helps spread the signal. And if you're ready to take control of your Bitcoin and your future, reach out to me for the one-on-one self-custody consultancy program, Become Unruggable. You'll learn how to hold your own keys with confidence and never depend on a middleman again. Until next time, stay sovereign, stay curious.